Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. Business confidence drops to a new record low in the first data since the federal budget, and the latest Reserve Bank interest rate increase, and a stunning development on Australia's political scene. The weekly Roy Morgan poll shows One Nation primary support up 2.5% to a record high of 29.5%, now ahead of both the ALP and LNP coalition for the first time. ALP primary support is down 1% to 26%, and the LNP coalition is down 2.5% to only 17.5%. Liberals 14.5%, down 3%, and Nationals 3%, up 0.5%. Support for the Greens was up 2% to 15.5%, and Independents and other parties was down 1% to 11.5%. Importantly, these trends have been evident for several weeks. Since the federal budget on Tuesday, May 12, primary support for One Nation is up 5% to 29.5%. ALP support's down 3.5%, LNP coalition support is down 6.5%, and Greens support is up 4%. These results show the voters are abandoning the traditional major parties and moving to alternatives. In effect, since the federal budget, One Nation has gained support at the expense of the LNP coalition, and the Greens have gained support at the expense of the ALP. Although falling behind on primary support, the ALP has maintained its two-party preferred lead over the coalition on 56% to 44%, based on how electors said they'd vote. If the federal two-party preferred contest is between Labor and One Nation, it would be closer. The Morgan poll estimate is ALP 53.5%, ahead of One Nation 46.5%, unchanged from last week. Either way, if a federal election were held now, the ALP would be returned to government, according to interviewing conducted June 1 to 7, with a representative Australia-wide cross-section of 1,631 electors. Roy Morgan government confidence dropped 8 points to 61.5, almost 40 points below the neutral level of 100. Only 24% of electors now believe the country's going in the right direction. That's down 4%. And an increasing majority of 60.5% say the country's going in the wrong direction. That's up 4%. Consumer confidence. This week, ANZ Roy Morgan consumer confidence increased 2 points to 70.8. Still low, but the first time the indicator's been above the mark of 70 for 3 months since early March, before the last two interest rate increases. The Reserve Bank meets again next week to decide whether to increase interest rates for a fourth time this year. Consumer confidence has now been below the level of 80 for 15 weeks and averaged only 66.9 over this period. Driving this weekly increase was increasing confidence about people's personal financial situation over the next year, and the feeling that now's a good time to buy major household items as we enter the end of the financial year and mid-year sales period. Net sentiment regarding buying conditions has now increased for 4 weeks in a row and is up by a net 14 percentage points during this period. That's the largest increase of any indicator. In not so good news, before the Reserve Bank meets next week, ANZ Roy Morgan inflation expectations increased 0.2% to 6.1%. This means Australians expect annual inflation of 6.1% in each of the next 2 years. The increase in inflation expectations came after last week's announcement that the Fair Work Commission has awarded an increase of 4.75% to 2.8 million workers across the economy, and an increase of 6% for the lowest paid workers of all. That's a relief to the workers, but a significant cost to many businesses. And now to business. For the month of May, Australian business confidence hit a new record low, 76.1, well below the neutral level of 100. The drop in business confidence came after the Reserve Bank raised interest rates for a third straight month in May, up 0.25% to 4.35%, the equal highest level of interest rates since 2011. And after Treasurer Jim Chalmers handed down a controversial federal budget in mid-May, which included significant changes to the treatment of negative gearing and capital gains taxation. The Roy Morgan Business Confidence Series is based on interviews with 1,200 businesses each month to gauge their views on their company's prospects, as well as their assessment of the broader Australian economy. Over the 3 months to May, there was only one industry with positive business confidence above the neutral level of 100. That's mining, on 124.1. The mining industry is being boosted by high prices for several key commodities, including oil and gas, as well as rare earths and critical minerals. At the other end of the scale, there are now several industries with low business confidence over the last 3 months, including manufacturing on only 71.5, agriculture, forestry and fishing on just 72.1, wholesale trade on 75.3, construction on 77.2, and accommodation and food services on 78. Looking forward, I'll be back next week to bring you the latest data on consumer confidence, inflation expectations, unemployment, and once again, voting intention. Thanks for listening. See you next week.